Ethan Cole had always considered himself an ordinary man. His days were filled with teaching high school science, grading papers, and spending quiet nights in his small house in the town of Brooksville. He didn't seek adventure. His world was predictable, safe, and comfortable. But all of that was about to change. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Ethan found himself on his front porch, enjoying the cool evening air. It had been a long week of school, and all he wanted was to relax. But something unusual caught his attention, a strange light flickering in the sky. At first, he thought it was just a trick of the fading light, maybe a distant plane or a shooting star. But then the light grew brighter, and a streak of it shot across the sky, moving erratically, faster than anything he had ever seen. It seemed to fall toward the nearby forest. His curiosity got the better of him. Ethan quickly grabbed his jacket and set off toward the woods. He knew it could be something as simple as a meteor, but something about the light felt different, more deliberate. He arrived at the edge of the forest and noticed the ground where the light had landed was disturbed, as if something had crashed through it. With careful steps, he ventured deeper into the woods, following the trail of broken trees and scorched earth. The air was thick with the scent of burnt wood, and a low humming sound filled the space. Soon, he reached a clearing and froze in his tracks. There, amidst the smoke and wreckage, was a massive object, something he had never seen before. It was a ship, sleek and metallic, shimmering under the pale moonlight. Its shape was unlike anything human technology could produce. It was both beautiful and terrifying. Ethan stepped closer, his heart racing. His mind told him to turn back, but his curiosity kept him moving forward. As he reached the ship, he saw a hatch on its side slowly open, creaking as if it hadn't been used in centuries. The humming sound grew louder, and a soft light illuminated the inside of the ship. A figure emerged from the ship, and Ethan gasped. Standing before him was a woman unlike any he had ever seen. She was tall and graceful, her skin glowing with a soft, otherworldly light. Her hair shimmered like silver, and her eyes were a deep shade of violet, glowing with an intelligence that seemed beyond human comprehension. She wore a form-fitting suit that shimmered with an iridescent sheen, as though it had been made from something beyond Earth's materials. The woman took a step forward, her gaze fixed on Ethan, and spoke in a language he didn't understand. Her voice was soft, melodic, but the words were alien to him. Ethan stood frozen, unsure of what to do or say. His mind raced, but all he could manage was a hesitant, "What?" "Who are you?" The woman's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. Then she spoke again, this time in perfect English. "I choose this human." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The words didn't make sense. Why had she chosen him, and what did it even mean to choose a human? Before he could ask, the woman's expression softened, and she stepped closer, extending a hand to him. "I am Larry, Princess of the Zandari Empire," she said, her voice still calm but firm. "I have come to your planet for a purpose, and you are part of it." Ethan stared at her, still processing the fact that he was standing face to face with an alien princess. His thoughts swirled, a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. Was this a dream? How could something like this happen to him, an ordinary high school teacher from a small town? "I don't understand," he said, still unable to take his eyes off her. "Why me?" Larry looked at him with a steady gaze, her violet eyes intense but not unkind. "Because you, Ethan Cole, possess the qualities that I need. You have the heart of a leader, the strength of character, and the wisdom to see beyond what is in front of you. You are the one who can help me in my mission." Ethan was still processing everything she had said when a loud sound interrupted the moment. The trees around them rustled, and the ground trembled slightly as if something large was approaching. Larry turned, her expression changing to one of caution. "Stay close," she said, her voice now sharp with urgency. "There are those who would prevent this." Before Ethan could respond, several figures emerged from the trees, men in dark uniforms, their faces masked. They moved quickly, surrounding Larry and Ethan. One of them spoke in a language Ethan didn't understand, but the tone was hostile. Larry stepped forward, her posture straight and commanding. She raised her hand, and the men immediately froze. Ethan was startled by the power in her presence. These men were armed, but they were clearly afraid of her. Larry spoke in their language, her voice firm and clear. It was obvious from their reactions that they understood her. The tension in the air was thick. Ethan couldn't move, unable to comprehend the situation fully. Who were these people? Why were they after Larry? His mind raced, but before he could say anything, the leader of the group lowered his weapon and gave Larry a slight bow. "We were wrong to approach you like this, Your Highness," he said, his voice filled with respect. "We didn't know you had chosen this human." "We will stand down." Larry didn't respond right away. She kept her gaze fixed on them, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm but with an edge. "Remember your place. I am the princess of the Zandari Empire. You will not interfere with my decisions again." With that, the group stepped back, disappearing into the woods as quickly as they had arrived. Larry turned back to Ethan, who was still trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. "I'm sorry you had to see that," she said softly, her voice now gentle again. "There are many who do not understand why I have come here, but you are a part of something much bigger than either of us." Ethan's mind was reeling. He had been pulled into a conflict between alien factions, one that he didn't understand. His life, which had been so simple and predictable, was now intertwined with the fate of an entire empire. He had so many questions, but Larry's presence was so commanding, so calming, that he found himself wanting to trust her, despite the chaos around them. "I still don't understand," he said. "What do you need from me?" Larry smiled again, her violet eyes sparkling with a mix of hope and determination. "You are the key, Ethan. There are things in my empire that need change, and together we can bring about that change. You will help me bring peace not just to my people, but to your world as well." Ethan's heart raced. Peace. How could he, a simple teacher, help bring peace to an entire empire, and what did it mean for Earth? But one thing was clear. His life would never be the same again. Ethan woke up early the next morning with a sense of unease in the pit of his stomach. It had only been a few hours since he had met Larry, the alien princess, and already his world had shifted in ways he couldn't fully grasp. The quiet town of Brooksville now seemed like a distant memory, replaced by thoughts of distant galaxies, alien politics, and the strange, glowing woman who had chosen him for something far beyond his understanding. He had spent the night in a small, secure cabin that Larry had led him to after their brief encounter in the woods. The cabin was hidden deep in the forest, far from the prying eyes of those who might be watching. It was clear that there were forces at work, forces that didn't want him to be involved with Larry, and yet here he was, caught in the middle of something much bigger than himself. Ethan sat up in the bed, staring out the window at the morning sunlight filtering through the trees. His mind raced with questions. Who were the people that had appeared in the forest, and why had they tried to stop him from being with Larry? And what did she mean when she said he was the key? What was his role in all of this? He had asked Larry these questions last night, but she had only smiled and told him that everything would become clear in time. She had been calm and reassuring, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was being drawn into a web of danger and intrigue, with no clear way out. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. He stood up quickly, unsure of what to expect, but he opened the door to find Larry standing in the doorway, her eyes soft and calm as always. "Good morning, Ethan," she said, her voice as smooth and melodic as it had been the night before. "I trust you slept well." Ethan nodded, though he wasn't sure how much sleep he had actually gotten. The thoughts swirling in his mind had kept him awake for much of the night. "I didn't sleep much," he admitted. I can't stop thinking about everything that happened. It's all so overwhelming. I'm not even sure I understand why I'm here or what's going on." Larry stepped inside the cabin and closed the door behind her. "I know it's a lot to take in," she said gently, "but I'll explain everything to you, I promise. You have been chosen for a reason, Ethan. You are important to the future of my people and to the future of your world." Ethan looked at her, still unsure of how to react. He had never thought of himself as important, let alone the key to something as grand as the fate of an entire empire. He was just a high school teacher, a simple man with a quiet life. But now, everything had changed. "Last night you said I was the key." "What do you mean by that?" he asked. Larry took a deep breath and sat down at the small table in the cabin, gesturing for Ethan to join her. He sat down across from her, his mind still racing. "There is a conflict within my empire, Ethan," she began, her voice growing serious. "A conflict that has been brewing for centuries. The Zandari Empire is vast, stretching across many worlds and systems, but it is divided. There are factions within my people who believe in different paths. Some want to maintain the status quo, while others want to change the way we live and interact with other species, like yours." Ethan listened intently, his curiosity piqued. He had no idea that the princess's empire was so large, or that it was in such turmoil. He had always thought of aliens as distant and mysterious, but now he realized that they had their own struggles, their own politics, much like the nations of Earth. Some factions believe that Earth is a primitive world, unworthy of contact, Larry continued. They see humans as too dangerous to be part of the greater galactic community. Others, like myself, believe that Earth has much to offer, and that humanity is capable of more than the violence and division it has shown so far. Ethan felt a sense of pride at her words, but also a sense of responsibility. So, what does that have to do with me? He asked, his voice hesitant. Larry's eyes softened as she looked at him. You are not just any human, Ethan. You embody the qualities that my people need. Your compassion, your ability to understand others, your refusal to give up on the people around you. These are the qualities that the Zandari Empire needs to bridge the gap between us and your world. Ethan was stunned. He had always considered himself a simple person, someone who just did his job and went home. He didn't see himself as anything special. But Larry saw something in him that he couldn't yet understand, and it terrified him. So, I'm supposed to help you bring peace to your empire, he asked, his voice low. Larry nodded. Yes, but not in the way you might think. The decision to bring Earth into the fold of the Zandari Empire is not just mine to make. There is a council made up of the leaders of each faction. They will decide whether to accept or reject my choice of humanity. But I believe that you, Ethan, are the key to convincing them. Ethan's mind reeled. He had no idea how he could possibly convince an entire empire of aliens to accept humanity. He wasn't a diplomat or a leader. He was just a teacher, a man with no special talents or skills. Why me? He asked again, his voice quiet. I'm just an ordinary guy. I don't know how to do any of this. How am I supposed to convince them? Larry reached across the table and placed her hand on his. Her touch was gentle but firm, and it sent a strange warmth through him. You don't need to be extraordinary, Ethan, she said softly. You have something that no one else does. You have the heart of a human. That is what the Zandari Empire needs right now, someone who can see beyond politics, beyond power. Someone who can see the value in every life, in every choice. Ethan looked down at her hand on his, still uncertain. He had never felt more out of place in his life. How could he possibly be the one to help bring peace to an entire empire? How could he, a simple teacher, be the answer to their problems? As if sensing his doubts, Larry smiled gently. I understand your hesitation, but you are not alone in this. I will be with you every step of the way. Together, we will convince the Council that humanity has a place in the galaxy. Ethan took a deep breath, his heart racing. He didn't know if he was ready for this, but something in Larry's eyes made him believe that he could be. Maybe he wasn't meant to understand everything right away. Maybe all he had to do was trust her and trust himself. All right, he said, his voice steady. I'll help you. I'll do whatever it takes. Larry's smile widened, and for the first time since meeting her, Ethan saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Thank you, Ethan, she said softly. I knew I made the right choice. Days passed quickly for Ethan as he adjusted to his new life, one that seemed more like a dream than reality. What started as a mysterious encounter with an alien princess had quickly escalated into a mission that could change the fate of both Earth and the Zandari Empire. He had no idea what he was truly getting himself into when he agreed to help Larry. But now, as he stood beside her in a hidden location deep within the woods, preparing for the journey ahead, he couldn't back out. There was no turning back. Larry had promised him answers. She told him that the Council of the Zandari Empire, the governing body of the different factions, was divided. There were those who wanted to bring Earth into the galactic community, and those who saw it as too dangerous. But what made things more complicated was that Larry herself was caught in the middle, trying to unite these opposing views while dealing with enemies who didn't want her to succeed. We leave tonight, Larry had told him earlier that day. We'll head to a place where the council meets. It is neutral ground, but getting there won't be easy. There are those who will try to stop us. Ethan didn't know exactly what he had signed up for, but it didn't matter now. He had already made his decision. He would see it through. As the sun began to set, Larry led Ethan to a hidden compartment beneath the ground where a small spacecraft awaited them. It was sleek, dark, and surprisingly compact, far smaller than the massive ship he had seen the night he first met Larry. But there was no time for questions now. He climbed into the ship and they prepared for takeoff. Inside the ship, Larry guided Ethan to the controls. Though the technology seemed far more advanced than anything he had ever seen, she explained the basics of the controls and showed him how to interact with the ship. Despite his lack of training, Ethan found that he understood the ship's systems instinctively. It was as if something deep within him connected with the alien technology in a way he couldn't explain. "You're doing well," Larry said as they ascended into the sky. "Most humans would struggle to navigate this ship, but you seem to have a natural connection with it." Ethan didn't know how to respond to that. He had always been a man of logic, grounded in the familiar. But now, flying through the atmosphere in an alien craft, with Larry sitting beside him, the world outside feeling both close and distant at the same time, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of destiny. As they flew through the night, the world below shrinking into a patchwork of lights and shadows, Ethan found himself reflecting on the strange turn his life had taken. He had been a simple teacher, someone who had never asked for fame or recognition. And yet here he was, caught up in the political struggle of an intergalactic empire. "What exactly are we going to do when we get to the council?" Ethan asked after a long silence. "How can I possibly convince them that humanity deserves to be part of your empire?" Larry looked at him, her expression serious but gentle. "The council is divided, as I told you. Some believe that humanity is not ready for the responsibilities of galactic membership. They think that your species is too violent, too unpredictable. But there are others who see the potential in humans, your creativity, your ability to learn, your capacity for compassion. It's not about proving that Earth is perfect. It's about showing that humanity has the ability to change, to grow, to be part of something bigger than itself." Ethan nodded slowly, trying to absorb her words. He wasn't sure if he was the right person to make this argument. He was just a teacher. What did he know about convincing an entire empire of aliens? But he had to trust Larry. She believed in him, and that belief was enough for now. The journey to the council's meeting place was long and quiet. As they traveled deeper into space, Ethan marveled at the stars, the vastness of the galaxy, and the way the ship seemed to glide effortlessly through the void. Despite the dangers that lay ahead, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at the beauty of the universe. It was a reminder that there was so much more out there than he had ever known. Eventually, after what seemed like hours, Larry broke the silence. "We're almost there. The meeting place is located on a neutral moon, far from any of the factions. It's a place where leaders can come together without the pressures of their home worlds." Ethan glanced over at her. "Will the council really listen to us? Will they really consider Earth as a member of the galactic community?" Larry's eyes shone with a quiet confidence. "I have to believe they will. I fought for this moment for a long time, and with you by my side, I believe we can change their minds." The ship approached a small moon, its surface illuminated by the light of a nearby star. The landscape was barren, rocky, and desolate. But it wasn't the moon itself that mattered. It was the large, metallic structure that stood on its surface. It looked like a meeting hall, a place of diplomacy. The ship descended toward it, and as they landed, a sense of foreboding settled over Ethan. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. This was it. This was the place where everything would either change for the better or fall apart. As they stepped off the ship, Ethan felt the cold air of the moon against his skin. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the distant hum of alien technology. Larry led the way toward the entrance of the meeting hall, and Ethan followed, his heart pounding in his chest. Inside, the council chamber was vast, with high ceilings and walls made of dark, reflective material. Several figures stood at the center, their forms cloaked in robes that shimmered with strange symbols. They looked at Ethan and Larry with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. A tall figure stepped forward, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Princess Larry," he said in a deep, commanding voice, "you have brought a human to the council. What makes you think this species is worthy of our trust?" Larry stood tall, her expression unshaken. "I bring this human before you because he embodies the qualities that will help bridge the gap between our people. His compassion, his ability to understand, and his willingness to see beyond the surface of things. These are the qualities that Earth has to offer." The figure studied Ethan closely, his gaze penetrating. "And what makes you think you can represent your species in this matter?" he asked, turning his attention to Ethan. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. This was it. He had to speak from the heart. He had to prove that humanity was worth the risk. "I'm not special," he said quietly. "I'm just a teacher. I don't have the power or the knowledge that many of you might have, but what I do know is that humanity is capable of great things. We make mistakes and we fight among ourselves, but we also learn from those mistakes. We grow, we adapt, and we have the potential to become part of something bigger than ourselves." The council members exchanged glances, some skeptical, others intrigued. It was clear that this was just the beginning of a long and difficult debate. But for the first time, Ethan felt a sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they would listen. Larry stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "The choice is not mine alone to make. But I believe in humanity, and I believe in Ethan. I trust that together we can help bring about the change that my people need." There was silence in the room. The council members whispered among themselves, debating the words they had just heard. Ethan could only watch, his heart racing as the weight of the moment settled over him. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt as though he was part of something much bigger than himself. And no matter what happened next, he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't turn back now. The silence in the council chamber seemed to stretch on forever. Ethan stood at the center, his heart pounding as the alien leaders whispered among themselves. He had just spoken the truth as he saw it, but now he felt the weight of their judgment pressing down on him. Would they accept him? Would they accept Earth? Or would his words fall flat, lost in the cold void of space? Larry stood beside him, her presence a steady anchor in the chaos around them. Her calmness, her unwavering belief in him, was the only thing keeping him from collapsing under the pressure. He glanced at her, and she offered him a small, reassuring smile. There was so much at stake, and yet in that moment it felt as though the future of both their worlds rested in his hands. Finally, the whispers died down. The tall figure who had addressed them earlier, the leader of the council, stepped forward. His glowing eyes locked onto Ethan, and the weight of his gaze made Ethan feel as if he were being stripped bare. This was the moment that could change everything. "Your words are interesting," the leader said, his voice low and rumbling. "But words alone will not sway us. What proof do you have that humanity is ready to join the galactic community? What can you show us that will convince us that your species is worth the risk?" Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. He had no proof, no evidence to offer them, only his belief in humanity's potential. But as he stood there, the weight of his thoughts cleared, and he understood what he needed to say. He had no grand gestures, no technological marvels to show them. But he had his story, his belief in the goodness of people. He had the truth of humanity. "Proof?" Ethan finally spoke, his voice steady despite the nerves gnawing at him. "What proof do you need? I don't have anything grand to show you. I don't have a fleet of ships or a history of peace. What I have is this. I've taught for years, and every day I've watched young people grow. I've seen them make mistakes, but I've also seen them learn. I've seen them help each other, reach out when someone falls. I've seen the best of humanity in the way we come together when we need to." He paused, letting his words sink in, hoping they could understand what he meant. "We're not perfect. We fight, we fail, we make terrible choices, but in the end we always find a way to keep going. And that's why I believe we're worth the risk. Not because we're perfect, but because we have the potential to be better. We have the heart to change, to grow, and to be a part of something greater." Larry's gaze never left him, her eyes filled with pride. Ethan's words weren't the grand speeches of diplomats or warriors, but they were honest, and sometimes that was all that mattered. The council members exchanged looks, their expressions unreadable. The tension in the air was palpable as Ethan waited for their decision. His heart was in his throat, each passing second feeling like an eternity. Would they see the truth in his words, or would they reject humanity and cast him aside? Finally, the leader spoke again. "Your words have made an impact, but we must decide what path we will take. The decision is not just yours to make, Ethan Cole. It is not just Larry's. This council will deliberate." Ethan felt a sinking sensation in his stomach. He had hoped for a quicker resolution, but he understood. This was a decision that would affect not just one planet, but countless worlds. It couldn't be made lightly. The council members stepped back, their voices growing faint as they began their deliberations. Ethan and Larry stood together, waiting in silence as the minutes dragged on. "You did well," Larry whispered, her voice soft. "I'm proud of you." Ethan didn't know how to respond. He wasn't sure what to feel. He had spoken his heart, but now the future was in the hands of these unknown beings. Would they see things as he did? Or would they reject the idea of humanity altogether? The chamber grew darker as the deliberations continued. The soft hum of the room, the only sound, made the wait feel even longer. Ethan was starting to feel the weight of the silence when the leader finally returned to the center. "We have reached a decision," he said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "After much consideration, we have agreed that humanity deserves a chance. The Council is not unanimous, but there is enough support to allow Earth to join the galactic community." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He had not expected this. It was not a complete victory, but it was something. A chance for humanity to prove itself. "The process will not be immediate," the leader continued. "There will be trials, challenges to face. Your species must demonstrate its willingness to change and adapt. But the Council will allow Earth to begin its path toward full membership." Ethan looked at Larry, who was smiling, her eyes shining with a mixture of relief and triumph. "You did it," she said, her voice filled with pride. "We did it." Ethan felt a wave of emotion wash over him. It wasn't over yet, but this was a monumental step forward. Humanity had been given a chance to prove that they could be part of something bigger than themselves, a chance to prove that they were worthy of the galactic community. "We will begin the preparations immediately," the leader said. "But know this, Earth's path will not be easy. You will face opposition, you will face challenges, but if humanity is truly ready, it will rise to meet them." Ethan nodded, his mind racing with the enormity of what lay ahead. He had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he was part of something truly significant. And maybe, just maybe, he could help guide humanity toward a brighter future, one where they could take their place among the stars. The council members began to disperse, their voices fading as they moved toward other chambers. The weight of their decision hung in the air, but for now it was time to breathe, time to think about what came next. As the last of the council members filed out, Larry turned to Ethan. "You did it, Ethan. You were the key. Without you, I don't think we would have succeeded." Ethan shook his head. "No, Larry, this wasn't just me. It was you too. You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." She smiled, her gaze warm. "We both did our part, and now Earth has a future in the stars." Ethan looked out at the stars through the chamber's window. For the first time, they didn't seem so distant. They felt close, almost within reach. The journey ahead would be long and difficult, but they had taken the first step. "Are you ready?" Larry asked, her voice soft but determined. Ethan turned to her, feeling the weight of the moment. "I'm ready. Let's see where this journey takes us." As they walked out of the council chamber, side by side, the future stretched out before them, uncertain but full of possibility. And in that moment, Ethan knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, he wasn't alone.